This week we're looking at action research in the community services. Wadsworth describes action research as action that is intentionally researched and modified, leading to learning what to try in the next stage of action, which is then again intentionally examined for further change and learnings. He says life itself is a kind of action research project when you think about it in this way. But because there is less distance in action research between the researcher and the subject being researched, the whole process can be more malleable. Survey instruments and inputs such as questionnaires and methods may be changed over time, and the impacts of these changes may be observed and recorded. New questions can be added to the questionnaire, and different cohorts of respondents may be included in the study. Action research is essentially measuring the impacts of changed methodologies as well as alterations to services, processes, prices, procedures, and so on, and to measure how these impact on the clients and how they can be applied to changed and improved services. Action research is much more collaborative and it involves the audience in the process, that is the client or the research subject, the service user, or an advocate for the client in the process. In a sense, action research is like shining a light on the work that you're doing, or looking in the mirror at your place of work. In community services, you may be delivering services to people with specific or very high needs. Perhaps you're working in an emergency first response organisation, or in healthcare, settlement, or outreach to families in need. You must make sure that your services are both effective and well understood, and to do that, you need to look both inwards at the organisation and outwards at your clients. There are many ways of doing action research, and this is just one protocol to have a look at. In stage 1, we are concerned with consultation, that is, talking to all key stakeholders in the process and understanding the types of questions that need to be asked and the appropriate methods to be used, what is going to be most satisfactory and what is going to give the best information for you to be able to work with. At stage 1B, we start the sampling process, and that means selecting the people who are going to participate in the study. For example, you might just want to do the research with a particular cohort, such as males or females, or younger people or older people, or people who are regular users of the services, or people who've only used the service once. So you define that sample, and you start by collecting data. That is, you're applying a questionnaire, or you're conducting face-to-face interviews or focus group discussions or self-completion questionnaires, whatever the methodology that you've chosen is applied at this phase. And then you start preparing the material for data processing. Once it has been processed, we go to stage 1C, which is looking at the preliminary results that have come out of the data that we've collected and looking at how we can analyse that data to best present a picture to the key stakeholders of what the findings may be. And there are various analytical tools at our disposal there. So finally we get to the final stage of stage 1, and this is still only stage 1 of the process, where we look at how we're going to report the findings, whether it's going to be through a written report, through overhead slides, or whatever it's going to be. And we have a discussion about the findings amongst the key stakeholders. What do these findings mean to the organisation, and how can we work with them? We need to reflect on where we might have gone wrong, what we've done well and what we've done poorly, etc. And only after a lot of reflection and discussion are we in a position perhaps to advance to stage 2, where we may consider implementing the same survey again, say 6 months later, or look at a different cohort of potential respondents, or use a different methodology altogether. But this is just one way, one protocol that we could potentially use. We've already spent quite a bit of time talking about ethics in conducting research, but in action research within a community services organisation, confidentiality and ethical behaviour is key. Due to the closer relationship between the clients of the service, or the research subjects as we may call them, and the researcher, as well as the researcher's organisation, Action research requires an even greater focus being placed on confidentiality. Those involved in the research process will often have a more in-depth knowledge of the participants' personal circumstances, so their comfort and confidentiality are imperative. Some people may be reluctant to participate in an action research project. They may fear that the outcomes could have a negative consequence for them. So it's your job and a paramount requirement to ensure that participation will have no follow-on consequences and that people's personal information will both remain private and be securely stored if need be. We've already spent quite a bit of time on research ethics, but just finally we need to reiterate in relation to this type of action research that informed consent is absolutely paramount. And by informed consent we mean, is the information given sufficiently clear? And what will happen if there are changes to the research protocol along the way? Clients will want to know what happens to the research results, or can they withdraw at any time from the research study if they so desire? Confidentiality spans things such as who knows what, and is my identity protected? And again, what happens to the results? Do they remain confidential? Where are they stored? Another important aspect in this type of research is the right to withdraw at any time. All participants must be made aware at the outset that they have the right to withdraw from the study, even notwithstanding that they may previously have given their consent to participate. And finally, the do no harm ethic. And that means that nothing negative will happen to the participant as a result of taking part in the research. That is, there will be no withdrawal of benefits, there'll be no change to the services delivered, and so on.